straight to Tatton now, because the Chancellor, George Osborne, has kindly agreed to talk to us. Mr Osborne, well done on keeping the seat, and good morning to you.
Good morning.
What do you make of it?
Well, it's a great result for the Conservatives, and certainly not what any of the pundits expected. But look, we now take seriously the task of getting back to work and finishing the job we started of turning this country around and addressing some of the big challenges, making sure the economy works for everyone, making sure we address the issues in our United Kingdom, which of course this election has thrown into sharp relief, and making sure here in the north of England that we build that northern powerhouse so we rebalance our national economy. So lots to do. We take tonight's result with good heart, but we get back to work and complete what the British people have asked us to complete.
Bear with us, Mr Osborne, because we're staying with you, but we're also looking at images of Downing Street right now, live images of Mr Cameron and Mrs Cameron arriving. They've just driven in through the gates, and now they're walking along the path up to the front door of number 10. Broad smiles. Mr Cameron looking understandably a little tired after a very long night, but clearly very pleased to be back at number 10, and they're now just waving to the assembled press and media before they go in through the famous door. And I'm sure that we'll see the Prime Minister a little later. Mr Osborne, what are you expecting today then? Do you expect us to have a statement from Mr Cameron at some point, and then maybe to outline for us what he intends to do now that he's possibly heading for a majority government, something that very few people, if any, had predicted?
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's always good to see the next-door neighbour coming back after a long night's work, and a good night's work. You will hear from the Prime Minister later, and we don't know what the full results are, and I don't think it would be right to preempt those full results. But clearly, we have a mandate to get on with the work that we started 5 years ago of turning Britain around, repairing its economy, making sure that we were providing work for people, making sure we're rebalancing our United Kingdom. So, as I was saying earlier, parts of our country like the north act as an economic counterbalance to our great capital city. And we've got lots of ideas we now need to turn into the laws that we will pass through our Parliament. Ideas on childcare and housing and helping working people keep more of their income tax-free, which we put to the British people in a manifesto and seem to have been warmly received.
Lots of viewers, Mr Osborne, might be wondering why you are claiming that you've been praised by the voters and rewarded by the voters for your stewardship of the past 5 years. The Lib Dems, on the other hand, have had a very brutal night. Any thoughts on your former coalition partners?
Well, look, for me personally, I was frankly sad to see Danny Alexander lose his seat in Inverness, and I've worked extremely closely with him, and I think he has given great public service to our nation. But in the end, we stood as different parties because we believe in different things, and we put forward different manifestos to the British people, and they made judgments about us. And I think in the end our argument was a more coherent one, a more compelling one. I think we had ideas about how to take forward the work we had achieved in government, and sometimes I think I felt our Liberal Democrat colleagues were trying to disown some of the work we'd achieved together in government. But it's ultimately up to them to talk about that. As I say, we've now got our clear instructions from the British people to continue with the task in hand, and I don't think anyone doubts that this country's got some really big challenges, and indeed this election has probably thrown up, or at least accentuated some of those challenges, particularly north of the border in Scotland. So there's lots to be getting on with, and we will, as we always try and do, indeed I do here locally in the northwest of England, work across party divides when we can to solve some of those national challenges.
You mentioned Scotland, Mr Osborne. The point I was about to raise, given the SNP's overwhelming result there, Mr Cameron did refer to potentially his outlook for the United Kingdom, which he underlined several times in his address in Witney. What will be the strategy? How are you going to try to are you going to try to reach out to voters in Scotland who've clearly rejected the Conservatives and Labour and the Lib Dems in this election?
Well, look, it's a huge challenge, and if I said to you there was some easy answer, I wouldn't be telling you the truth. And the Conservative Party, it's great to see my colleague there on the borders re-elected, but the Conservative Party has been shut out of too many constituencies in Scotland for a long time. The Labour Party now finds itself in a similar situation, and we have to listen to what the Scottish people are telling us. If we can find common ground, we will seek it, but of course ultimately Scottish nationalists want an independent Scotland and they want to break up the United Kingdom. That's not something I want to see, and as the referendum showed, a majority of the Scottish people don't want to see that. We have got some great all-party proposals, including the Scottish nationalists' proposals on further devolution ready to go. So whilst I'm absolutely clear we've got to reflect on the results, we've got to see what more we can do to make the people of Scotland feel that they are part of a strong United Kingdom. I think it would be a shame to just throw away all the work that the so-called Smith Commission did, because we've got legislation we can take through Parliament which would represent a significant further devolution of responsibility and power to Scotland, including, crucially for me as a centre-right politician, responsibility over raising the money that the Scottish Parliament spends, which I think would create a better political debate in Scotland.
Mr. Osborne, we'll see you later on probably, but thank you very much for joining us.